Okay, we're up to Siman Lamed Sif Dalid. Lo yaniach beis hazugas bekis echad. Again, the Mechaber's perspective, the halachic perspective, is that Rashi bin Atam, one is kosher and one is puzzle. So because of that, the Mechaber says, don't put in both pairs in one bag. Don't have one tefillin bag with both pairs. First of all, it's a bad idea because you'll confuse them. But forget about that because the tefillin bag has kedusha. And if you keep Rashi and Tam together, one's kasher, one's puzzle. It's chol, shachul chol, basel hanichai, bekis tefillin. Elias shnei kisim, v'simple chol yitin zabazeh. You have to have two tefillin cases, one for Rashi, one for Rabbi Tam. The Mishnah Berurah speaks out, umayri shehuzman akis tchila rak l'das echad, aval manoisam tchila haniach b'shneim shar. If you went to the store and specifically bought a bag, a tefillin case, for both, then it's fine. Because you instilled it in the beginning without that level of kedusha. He's referring to a case. You've been wearing Rashi tefillin your whole life. You have a bag for Rashi tefillin. You now start wearing Rabbi Tam. You want to put the Rabbi Tam in the Rashi that you can't because Rashi is a higher level kedusha. If you bought him a tchila to have all the pairs in the same bag, that's fine. But you can't add. That's the point. Yeah, this is the velvet cases. Because echad shall tefillin can the Messiah. Av betik atalis mutal eniach shneim. Afil in beloitik. If you have a talis bag and you want to just leave all the tefillin scattered in the talis bag, that's fine. Why? Because the talis bag doesn't have the level kedusha because it has a talis in it. Rabbi Tam tefillin and Rashi, which even the ones that's not kosher, it's not lower than talis. Talis is a beged chol. It's a mitzvah. It's a beged. We're talking about the tefillin bags. Now the Mishnah Berurah says, you do see from here, is that also lahachlif akisim v'kolshkin habat v'aratzuas v'aparshi shel Rashi bin Atam v'yichla. You do see from here that we're treating one as chol and one as a mitzvah. We don't really know which one, and because of that, I mean we're makbid. It's Rashi, but klape shmai, we're not 100% sure. Therefore, what you cannot do is swap the cases. Meaning, I can't take the hard plastic case from Rabbi bin Atam and go to Rashi or vice versa, because you're potentially going from kodesh to chol. If it was never used before, it was in the store, even if they wrote Rabbi Tam on the box, that doesn't matter, it was never used. But if it's used for Rashi, you can now use it for Rabbi Tam. He says, also, by the way, even if when you bought them, you made a stipulation, I'm going to put on Rashi, but if I want to move it to Rabbi Tam, I could. It doesn't work like that. Because once you use it for Rashi, it's potentially Mekayim, it's Kaddish, then to use it for Chol would be a Bizayah. Let's say you have in your house, you go to your basement, or you go you're in the shul, and you see an extra pair of ritzuas. The halacha is you could assume roiv ritzuas are Rashi. Most people are Rashi, so you could assume it's Rashi. He continues. V'yesh ma'achronim shemakilim yoser delididandis from the Rashi iker yochel hafel v'lito ritzua b'shor ben tam l'Rashi kishein lo acheres. Interesting. What's the issue of going back and forth from one Rashi to Rabbi Tam or vice versa? Right, you can't switch. So if I have the cases, I can't go from Rashi to Rabbi Tam or vice versa. Why? Because I'm potentially going from Kaddish to Chol. But nowadays we paskin beikar. See, in reality, we don't really know which one is Yotza. It could be Rashi is Chol and Rabbi Tam is the mitzvah, or vice versa. So technically, it says Mishnah Berurah, you can't go back and forth. However, we paskin. If you were to put, what would you say? You would say Rashi is the ikar. So if that's the case, then you could take the tefillin, Rabbi Tam tefillin case, and move it to Rashi because it's Mailin v'kodesh. The opposite would not be true. That's the psak of the Mishnah Berurah. And he says, also, if you take out of your bag, you take Rabbi Tam tefillin accidentally, put them back and take the Rashi. The reason being is because we paskin me'ikar adin, the Rashi is the mitzvah, therefore it's not considered a ma'avir all mitzvahs because we paskin like Rashi. Chol hamoyed ein lo nish Rabbi Tam. On Chol hamoyed, even those that wear tefillin, they don't wear Rabbi Tam. U'b'tisha b'av l'mincha yinicha meraitze. On Tisha B'av, if you want to wear Rabbi Tam during mincha, you could. Just do one quick line. The Mechaber Lamed Hey is just one line. Nogu b'minyan hashitim. When it comes to the amount of lines of the actual parsha, how many lines should the sofer use? How many lines of lettering? So the minig is shel yad shiva shitin b'chol parsha. Shel yad is 7 lines. Ub'shel rosh arba shitin. So shel yad is 7 and shel rosh is 4. That's the minig. V'mishin lo apostle. Listen, if you don't do it, it's not possible. And the Mishnah Berurah says, what's this about 7 and 4? Api kabbalah. Biyad Sofrim Ishmapiyish. This is a tradition that Sofrim have going back. 7 for Yad, 4 for Rosh. Now he says, they have a Kabbalah about how to start each line, about which word should begin each paragraph. Fine. And he says, and he ends off of this, Be'emes anuroim b'chush de b'ksivis hadakis sheregilin eze seifrim. He says we see with our own eyes with the dakis tefillin sheregilin eze seifrim kayem v'neser ramotze kam v'kam kukulim. These dakis tefillin, he says, we see they're not smohoder. Gam tchilas ksivas and shaloi nichtevu kedinan machmas dakusan. Dakis, because they're from a goat, whatever, they're not from a cow, they're thinner, they're much more softer. And he says the seifrim are not able to write the letters as well. Berubam chaser kam v'kam tagin, and he says you'll look at them, they're missing crowns on top, which you should not miss a crown of the letter. You know, by the way, open up mezuzahs. They're missing tagin left and right. Don't know why. And he says, "Du medina the Gemara." As we'll see in the next Siman, some Rishonim hold that if you don't have tagi, you're not yotza. We paskin you're yotza, but you shouldn't wear tefillin. Don't have a crown on them. And he says, you should not use dakis unless you check them many, many times. And you have to know who the sefer is. He said, I know that a lot of times they have young people write the dakis, and they're not very proficient. So it's something that you should be very, very careful with.